All right, everyone. Thanks for coming. We're going to get started. I'm Colin Slapeck, the Parks Director for the City of Janesville. Tonight with us is Blake Tyson from Parkitecture. He's our consultant for our project. We're here for the Monterey Park master plan, and really what we're focusing on is what you can see on these boards is kind of the middle area of the park, the main area outside of the stadium. And so this has been on the strategic plan for the city for a number of years, maybe since we started it when Mark arrived. And so it's been something that we've wanted to take a look at, and we've asked Blake to help us out. You know, it may be something that we pick away at year by year, depending on the projects and the scope of everything. Definitely, hopefully, can apply for some DNR grants and get some help with some of the funding. But tonight is just really gathering ideas. Blake has some maps up here. He's going to let you draw. But JATV is recording, so I would ask if we'll start out after Blake speaks a little bit, and if people have general comments, if they could just go to the podium, that way your voice will be picked up on JATV. It's not live tonight, it'll be recorded, but if you could just speak at the podium, and then once we come up here, that'll kind of get lost on the recording, but that's okay. And if you could, before you leave, sign in. There's a sign-in sheet back there. If we could just get people's name of who was here this evening. So I'll turn it over to Blake.
Thanks, Colin. So I'm Blake Tyson from Parkitecture and Planning in Madison, and our firm specializes in park and recreation facility planning and design. That's all we do. So very excited to be here. We have got a long history of work with the city, and this is a very exciting project, so we're happy to be involved. Tonight is really the first step of public input, and it's really refreshing to do this in person. I had to get my easels out and blow the dust off after 2 years of sitting in a closet, so that was kind of fun. And tonight, I'm really not going to talk at you very much. I want to listen and get your input on what you see this park evolving into. So we have 3 different boards here, different scales. As we move to the right, we get a little bit bigger bird's eye. So this is our closest view, and then we also have some maps on the table. And Colin said, I'm going to let you draw. I'm actually going to make you draw tonight. So that's the best way for us to interpret your ideas. I've got lots of trace papers, so don't be shy. We've got Sharpies. We're going to get our hands dirty, so it's going to be a fun evening, I hope. I also have some worksheets here with some framing questions. So if you're not comfortable speaking or sharing your ideas out loud, this is a great opportunity. It gets you started thinking about some of the opportunities that we could see in this park, and also bigger system-wide throughout the city. Are there other things missing in our existing park system? On the back side, there's kind of an open-ended comment section. So if you want to let me know how you feel about the Badgers, that's fine. I'll take those comments here, but I'd really prefer we focus on the park tonight. So with that, I think I'll be quiet for a few minutes, and if anyone wants to make initial remarks, there is a microphone over here. We want to make sure that it gets recorded. This is going to be a real free-flowing evening here up front, so Colin and I will be here to ask or answer questions and ask you questions as you come up, and then that's the workstation for the design charrette. Dean, you got to go over to the mic.
And I'd ask, if you do go to the mic, if you could just state your name. We don't need your address, but if you are with a group, Dean, Rock Trail Coalition or whatever, if you could just let us know that. If you're a neighbor of the park, just let us know that, so we have some reference of who's speaking.
I'm Dean Painter with the Rock Trail Coalition, Ice Age Trail Alliance, and a bunch of other organizations, Green Rock Audubon Society. We have interest in the park, especially the Rock Trail Coalition, because the Peace Trail, which we've worked on for years and years, runs through there, and right adjacent to the river along the roadway. And one of the things that Rock Trail Coalition has talked about for a few years is possibly having an arch at the entrance to the Peace Trail in that park, which would be right on the east end in the vicinity of Jackson Street somewhere. The arch would be one of those places where people who are doing bike tourism coming through Janesville could stop and have their picture taken, you know? So it'd have sort of a tourism aspect to it, identification that this is where the trail is, and so on and so forth. We went so far as having Angus Young do some renderings for us a couple of years ago, and I'll have this up there. I gave JATV a copy of it. I'll give one to Blake so he can take a look at it. Some other possible ideas. There is a group with the, can't remember the name of the organization, where the middle manager people work together on projects. Anyway, and they have the Stretch Out Stress project that they did last year, and they need to get those things installed along the trail, and I thought Monterey Park would be a good place for a couple of those. It's a big place for walkers and runners and bicyclists.
Are you referring to fitness equipment?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, Stretch Out Stress is the name of their project, and Rock Trail Coalition has helped them with their money. Another idea for that area, since it's adjacent to Wilson School, is possibly having a garden in a small portion of the area, and maybe with a picnic shelter adjacent to it, but where the kids from the school could maintain a flower garden adjacent to the shelter, which I thought would be a good educational thing for elementary school kids. My fourth idea is just to have a kiosk there of some kind with information about the bike trail or about the park or other stuff related to that general area. So those are my ideas, those four.
Anyone else want to make an initial comment before we? Yeah, go ahead. Colin, do you want to moderate here? I'm not very good.
Well, my name is Matt McDonald. I'm a longtime resident of Janesville, was born here, and now working in town. I'd like to thank Colin and Blake for hosting this forum. I think we have wonderful parks in town here. I used to work in the Parks Department for 3 summers. Really enjoyed my time there, and I heard this on the radio this morning, so I thought I'd come. So WCLO doing their job there. But my idea was in line with tree planting and how many trees we've lost in the last 10 years. I think I've heard estimates of 15,000 ash trees. And looking at carbon emissions and trying to mitigate carbon and global warming, the world just signed, a lot of people at the summit that was in Europe recently signed an accord to try and go carbon neutral by 2050. So this would be a good opportunity to just load it up with trees. Probably could be done for $20,000 or less. Get a nice arboretum or forest down there, be good for the wildlife. Each tree can sequester 4 tons of carbon in addition to that's the average tree, but if you have a tree the size of the ones in Traxler, some of those cottonwoods could sequester as much as 12 to 14 tons of carbon. And that's a big open space right next to the river. They get plenty of water. I'd like to see more trees. And we've lost a lot, both with the emerald ash borer and then along the bike trail. And just as time goes on, we lose trees due to storms or other diseases, and it can be expensive, time-consuming to replace them, so I think this is a good opportunity for that. That's all I had.
Thank you.
Andrea, Breuer Moon, 339 South Locust Street, the 4th Ward neighborhood. I've owned a home there since 1973. Let's see, it would be great if you could put the dam back, because at one time it generated electricity. And if we could put it back and retrofit it, we would have free electric for the poorest neighborhood in Janesville, which would be just beyond amazing. And then it would restore the 5 feet of water that dropped. Downtown Janesville, the water drop is significant enough where they're dumping now gravel and rock to hold the walls up, because water used to hold it up. Another concern is that our dam was the second dam, and the dam that's left upriver, the Aqua Dam, now there's not enough water to hold that dam in, and when that starts sliding out, the people in New Jersey that rent it, and the DNR loves them because they're like perfect with all of their regulatory crap. They said when that thing starts sliding out, they abandon the rental agreement and they walk. And so Aqua I think, is internationally renowned, and I think it's a big deal for what they do in that corner of the universe. It's not something I'm into. I'm hoping that we can patch and preserve the Black Hawk Cave, because weed intrusions are eroding the brick and the rock. It almost seems like, and there always is like 3% of the people that benefit by allowing the destruction or getting rid of historic monuments. The kiosk idea is excellent. The Fourth Ward is the first and oldest neighborhood that was, I guess, annexed into the town at the top of the hill later. So that apparently is why there's so much of our history just isn't in the books, because we were the first chapter that got added later. So the homes, the architectural significance of our homes, the ethnic stories. We're the first immigrant neighborhood. We continue to be the immigrant neighborhood. We are where people get started and start over. Anybody who's anybody, and in Washington, D.C. now, their families started in our neighborhood. Most people don't know that. There's this really cool historic book that it would be cool if every neighbor got one of those every year, so they could have pride in their neighborhood and not just feel like they were losers because they are in the more affordable neighborhood in Rock County. People go, is that the bad neighborhood? And I say, oh, I'm sorry, if you want a kind of a bad neighborhood, you're going to have to go to Madison or Rockford. If you want an authentically bad neighborhood, you're going to have to go to Milwaukee or Chicago. But if you want to go to the most affordable neighborhood in Janesville, that would be where I live. And if you're too stuck up to live there, I hope you don't buy. So I'm concerned that the football Monterey Stadium is being neglected. That's probably premeditated and deliberate, because apparently there's a handful of people that want everything on the east side with the new batting cage and soccer fields and slap your name on stuff. And so, but that would be a terrible loss for our neighborhood. That Monterey Stadium would be allowed to crumble and would be scooped away. The baseball diamond, the neighborhood kids do pickup games there, and if you allow them to know that it's going to be at the city council meeting, they'll all show up again in their cute little outfits, and it'll break your heart, and you'll feel like rats for trying to take their diamonds. So that we've already been there, done that. This is a rerun. Let's see, community center. Oh, and this doesn't have anything to do with, the park, but Fourth Ward, our polling place used to be at Wilson School. It was awesome. We would all walk there, walk back. Safest day of the school year for the kids to have the entire neighborhood there. And somebody decided that we have to get in our cars and drive somewhere, but that was kind of sad. Let's see. So there was this fantastically beautiful stone staircase off of Rockport Road going down to the stadium. Apparently it needed to be repaired, and I'm guessing they got a grant for it. And apparently when nobody was looking, they just tore it out and put this slip and slide sidewalk that cannot possibly be legal, because if it's wet, it will be critically dangerous. Definitely could not take a wheelchair on it. Doesn't have little flat parts every so many feet. So if you could put that back. That was done in the 30s, and what a sad day that was. And then just, if you could get the city employees to stop hacking down our trees. I know they don't want to pick up the leaves, and I know they clog up the water thingies to the river, but so many trees get hacked down. And I mean, just like, we wouldn't have to plant them if we just stopped hacking them down. And then when trees do get planted, they're crappy little bush trees that are just grow quick, and they're weedy, and they're ugly, and they're not oak trees, they're not elm trees, they're not cotton trees, what that guy said. So anyway, now we have a swamp. It's a wetland. It was a wetland. I mean, there's all sorts of old photos that show that before we put the second dam in, you could walk across it. Rock River, river of rocks, mostly rocks. The reason people settled here was because you could walk across the river with your wagons and your horses and your kids. So now we went back to that. That really, really, really sucks. It's heartbreaking. We used to have this lagoon that was pedestrian access. The 2 dams made for a quiet water place for canoes and kayaks. And there was enough water where you could actually, paddle. So, so please retain our football stadium and repair it. Please keep our baseball diamonds. Please get rid of the mosquitoes. Please stop cutting down our trees. Please keep our cave from crumbling. And gosh, if you can get your hands on some money to put the dam back, that would stinking rock. We tore out millions, billions probably, multiple hundreds of millions of dollars of securing the banks where you could separate them. Anyway, okay, I'm done. Oh, and so I found out about this by accident this morning in the paper. I did not get a card in the mail. I did not get an email. I didn't get a text message. So to sound even more cynical, I'm going to guess that the consulting company can create a design that is most likely to get a grant, if not the maximum grant, from whoever's throwing money around. And then the city gets to skim off 20% as administrative fees. So we're just here to fulfill the requirement and check mark of, did you let the people come up and whine for a while? Okay. So with that, have a wonderful evening. I'm going to skip your coloring session. I'm just going to leave now. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anybody else?
Good evening, I'm Dave Henke, more or less a lifetime resident of Janesville. I left for a little while, but I had to come back. It is a very historic area of the city. It is the beginning of the city. It is a neat area. And as we're talking about adding trees and playground equipment maybe, or as the kiosk and the archway, those are all really wonderful ideas, and maybe there's a way that we can incorporate some of the city's history of that area into those things. I'm kind of a bit of a history buff on the city. I love it, and I think maybe doing some incorporation of that into the future designs would be kind of neat for kids to be able to see that. There is the school right there that the kids could take a field trip that they could walk to and learn about the history of the city in which they live and in the neighborhood in which they live. So these are all very good ideas. I'm very encouraged. Thank you.
Harry Paulsen. I live 2 blocks from the park and the river. I'd like to see them plant some real trees instead of those ones they have been planting that don't grow more than 10 or 12 feet high. The thistles that were planted, and I mean they were planted, they weren't brought in with the dirt. You can go down and look at it and see that it was planted because it follows a pattern. They need to be removed. They really do. The people that authorized it should be removed too, as far as I'm concerned. If you plant grass that grows, there are several spots in Janesville where they have just grass area. They don't mow it, and maybe once a year, and that would be fine with me. It would definitely be a lot better than what is there now for the thistles. I'd like to see the area that they put in with all the gravel. I'd like to see it blacktopped so that it would be more handicapped friendly. I didn't mean accessible, but friendly. If you're trying to push a wheelchair down through there, or you're pulling a kid's cart with the kids in it for a walk, it would help tremendously. The baseball diamonds, one is completely gone. They took the fencing down and all. The second one, which is farther to the north, that's still there, but it needs some touching up work. There's lighting for both of them that hasn't been used in years. So if you put them back in, maybe they'll get use again. Even if you put it, pay $1 for 2 hours or $1 an hour or whatever. Something like that would be fantastic for the neighborhood kids. The basketball courts that exist down there, I heard they were going to tear them out and put something else in there. I think the neighborhood kids would really, really like to see that stay the way it is. Maybe even lighting down there. It needs a little work, but it's not destroyed. My last comment is finish things that haven't been finished down there. There's lighting that was taken out 4 years ago when they started this project, and it still hasn't been hooked back up. There is cables running along the north bank of the river that was always underwater. Now it's exposed. And if somebody gets in there and messes with it, with those cables, it will wipe out the whole south side of Janesville as far as telephones go. So that's something that should become a priority to get that fixed. And I would like to thank you guys for being here tonight, and those that showed up tonight. Thank you for coming.
Good evening. My name is Gary Danenberg. I grew up on the south side of Janesville, so I'm really familiar with Monterey Park. Spent a lot of time there fishing, ran track for Parker High School, and played basketball and football, everything. It is kind of a historical part of the city. And being someone that came from Janesville, I actually spent most of my years working here, about 44 years in business, building homes, and as a general contractor. My reason for being here tonight is actually two things. Since I was an avid fisherman for a long time before I had a family, I'd love to see a fishing pier put out into the river, similar to what they have at Rodemer Pond. I think it's really a nice draw, especially if you've got small children. If you've ever taken a 5 or 6 year old fishing, you know, getting a line out of trees and bobbers and things unsnagged is really tough, but dredge it out, put in a nice pier out there so we can actually use the river for what it's designed for, which is fishing. But one of the reasons I want to talk about tonight is a sport that we've been watching grow, and Cullen will attest to this. It's almost gotten to the point of an addiction, and it's a good addiction because this is one that actually promotes health, and it's about pickleball. And if you haven't seen it yet, if you haven't heard anybody talk about it, it's about the closest thing to a drug as you're going to get. And you just look at these and take a look if you like. Right now, the sport is growing at about 22% per year. And if you know anything about doubling things, the rule of 72 is take 22 and divide it into 72. This sport has doubled in about three and a half years. In Janesville, it's actually grown faster than that. We've got 6 courts down at Riverside Park right now, and those courts are just about packed every morning in the summer when they're open. For the peak hours, usually between about 7 till about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. At this point, we really see we can see the end of those courts being able to handle the load that we've got. When I started playing pickleball, this is only 3.5 years ago, we were just playing at Janesville Athletic Club, and it was enough for the 60 members we have. We now have 160 members, and that's just in the Janesville Pickleball Club. The pickleball community is probably about 1,000 or maybe 1,500 people in Janesville. They don't all sign up for an official club and, you know, get a name tag. But one of the things that we were looking at was the number of calories that people burned when they're down there. It got to be a conversation, so we Googled it. Turns out you burn about 8 to 10 calories a minute while you play. If you play for 3 hours, it's about 1,800 calories. And I don't know of anything else that burns that many calories, because I've played baseball, and aside from basketball, which I can't play anymore because of arthritis in the knees and bursitis in shoulders, rotator cuffs, it all adds up. But there's so many people down there who finally have found the it in what they're looking for. They're looking for something they could actually do. Once they retire, if you can't play basketball or play baseball, and it takes a lot of people to get a game together, with 4 people on one court, you can play for 3 or 4 hours. Here's some of the benefits of this sport. It just exercise. 4 years ago, I had more chins than a Chinese phone book. I got to tell you, it was probably about 50, 60 pounds heavier. And I shed it without even really realizing it was dropping off. People started asking me, what are you doing that you're losing so much weight? And I didn't really weigh myself at all. But the other part of it is the social part of it, the social contacts. I can honestly say that I've pretty much replaced most of my friends who don't do anything with people that play pickleball. We have a swear jar at my house, and every time I mention pickleball without being asked about it, I have to put $1 in there. So I'm going to be rich someday, guaranteed. The fun, the friends. We started some outings last year down at Riverside for our group. We have tailgate parties for brats, for chili. We have pie day. We're probably going to have a fish boil. We had a couple of the pickleball stars, and whether you realize it or not, one of the most highly decorated pickleball players in the world lives in Madison, Wisconsin. His name is Dave Weinbach. He put on a seminar for us down there. Also, Zane Navratil, he's the singles champion of the world, lives in Racine. And so we've got some resources here. Wisconsin is really on the map when it comes to pickleball. And I know it's a funny name, but it's actually named after a dog. It's been around since 1965. And in the last few years, it's finally caught on to the point where 28 nations have to actually be playing and sanction it, and we need one more nation before it goes into the Olympics. And there are people playing this everywhere. If you've ever been to the villages in Florida, there's 230 pickleball courts there right now. Nobody's even playing tennis there anymore. They just kind of stop building tennis courts because the ones they've got don't have anyone on them. A tennis court right now can fit 4 pickleball courts on it. So if you're looking at your bang for your buck when it comes to money spent by a city, this is where it's at. We've also got the sports complex out at the mall. I've been working with Zimmerman and Associates on getting some pickleball space there for winter use. Everyone's picking up on this. I've actually come out of retirement to start a new business for recovering pickleball and tennis courts and basketball courts. Oconomowoc is building 10 more outdoor courts for their parks. Beloit is putting 8 courts in the Riverside Park. We've already got 6, and this would be a great spot to start out with maybe 4 or a 6-pack of courts. We don't have to have lights. A bathroom would be nice because a lot of seniors play. But if we could consider that in your initial plan, in your master plan, that would be great. But I guess just the other thing you were mentioning about the kids playing down at the courts, or down at the park. The nice thing about this is that if you've ever seen kids play hockey, you just about have to mortgage your house to get kids into hockey, okay? Basketball, you need to go to camps a lot. It's very training intensive. I mean, basketball is great for kids when they're on the course, but if they want to really get good at it, it takes a lot of training. Football, I mean, let's face it, nobody's really playing much football down there. But with pickleball, you can buy a paddle probably on the internet for $25. The balls are $3 a piece, and that's all you really need for each player. So let's see what we can do for that down there. We're going to be full pretty quick, so appreciate it if you could. Thanks.
Go ahead.
Good evening. I'm Heather Miller. I actually used to live right on Monterey Park. My property backed up to Monterey Park. And what we need is to make it more accessible for those who are a little bit less fortunate and need to utilize a walker, need to utilize a wheelchair, need to utilize a specialty bike. The pathways should be paved, either by blacktop or concrete, whatever is feasible. Making a smooth walkway with benches would be appreciated by many. I know that a lot of times you can take that walk and enjoy the wildlife. As it stands now, I agree that it is an overgrown mess of weeds. I'm not sure who thought that was a good idea, but it needs to be cleaned up, and it needs to be done properly and better. Having a breeding ground for mosquitoes was not hopefully the intent. I know that as neighbors have complained, it seems like the complaints are falling on deaf ears. I think that's really important to increase our trees. I have to agree that real trees would be nice. I know it takes quite a number of years before we will see some maturity, but to have real trees and not these shrubberies everywhere we look would be nice. I think it's important to remember that we are still near a waterway, and we should not be putting a playground anywhere near there because you're inviting children unattended by adults. You're inviting a problem, and that would be a bad idea. There's a school nearby, there's a park not far. I think this needs to be mindful when we start to plan for families and gatherings. We need to be mindful that small children may or may not be attended with their parents or a legal guardian. And not all, kids don't always have the smarts that we hope, and they are curious in nature. So we should avoid that. In terms of accessibility, I would love to see a small pavilion. I would love to see a restroom. There is nothing nearby. I would love to see that we could maybe even rent a small pavilion and use for graduations or birthday parties. Because again, you don't have many affordable options, especially on this side of town. If we could bring the lights back, it is a very, very dark, if you've ever been there in the evening, it is a very dark walk. You're inviting problems. It makes it very difficult for police presence. They're always in there with flashlights if they get a call. If we could have lights near the pathways, have the light restored on the top of the rock, you're inviting problems when you have darkness. I'd like to see that people in the area are proud of their park. And right now, I think I hesitate to say that they are not yet, and they have a vision, and quite honestly, they would love to be proud of their park. And in order to do that, we have to be mindful of the safety features, and we also have to be mindful that there's all ages that are using our walkways, our parks, and let's make sure that we keep them in mind as we go forward. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak?
Hi, Oakley Ryan, living on the not far from downtown, but Monterey Park is probably one of the favorite areas for my husband and myself. And we don't live in the area. We love the area, though, and so one of the things we love it so much. I saw I signed up for Janesville Twitter updates, and I love getting my updates from the city on that, and it's super helpful. So In fact, I tried to dial in on the virtual, and then I found out it was going to be live. So love it so much, I came down to share comments. One of the things that we love about it is that we really feel that we can go out for an outing from our home. So, you know, we live about 2.5 miles away. We get on a bike, we take a car. My husband likes to fish, and so they do have a little area that you can stand out there. You've got the, what is it called, the frog pole, where you can get ice cream and bait and tackle. So there's a lot of things that we appreciate, but when we go by the area we're talking about, most of the time when we use it, it doesn't feel being used, right? And one of the parks, so I was trying to think about that, we used to live in Boston, and going along to Charleston, you'd go along the river, and there were different sports going on. They had a little soccer league going on. And so I kind of imagine something that has an activity for everyone that can be used at different times. And I know you don't want to break up, you know, the natural beauty, but you know, that kind of big open area, I don't think has that many natural assets right now. We don't have a lot of trees. So I think of that, I think it's a really open landscape to put in, whether it's a little league field, a soccer field, to just encourage all those people who live in that area to view it as their community park. And so I don't know how you plan that, but to me, I know I used to be involved in soccer. We really focused on the east side in the sports complex. Sometimes we tried to do programs at Bond Park, and I think they've done some programming there. But other than that, you know, we go to Rockport. It'd be great to have a west side kind of family sports area. So you'd ride your bike, you'd sit on a bench that someone mentioned, you'd see some games going on. So I don't know how, I just see so many opportunities because it's a big space, right? So we love it. We bike down there, and on our way back, we always go through the 4th Ward, and then we do our exercises at the fitness court. So it's just a huge asset, and I would encourage you to think, obviously, and I think, Cullen, you've done that well, is invite private contributions too. You know, there are people who are passionate about that. And I just see, you know, the beginnings of coming from Town Square. If we could figure out what to do with the Marling property, you've got the great bike trails, you go to Monterey. I love seeing people play basketball there. It's just a great asset. So obviously we're pretty into fitness and things like that, as you can get from my messaging, but I really see that could bring people out. So some random thoughts from an appreciated person.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? If there's not, then we'll move on to the next part.
Yeah, that's a good start at feedback here. I've got a page of comments. So what I'd like to do is invite you up and take a look at some of the maps. Let's come over here and we'll get the Sharpies out and start drawing your ideas. I want to reiterate, for me, this is a blank slate. I don't have the personal history that a lot of you do with the park and the neighborhood. So for me, there's no idea that is wrong right now. So let's have some fun and see what evolves here tonight. So if you don't feel like playing along with the markers, that's fine. You can stand aside and watch, or you can fill out your comment forms. They are up here on the table. I'd really appreciate getting some written comments to some of these questions I've posed. Do we have pens? We will get some pens. I have Sharpies, but it's not fun writing in small spaces with Sharpies. So we will get some, and hopefully you guys will take a few minutes and just give us some answers. Please leave these before you go. That way I can actually absorb your comments. So with that, feel free to come on up, and I'll pass some of the things out.